I'm not an apologist for big pharma. In fact, when corporations manipulate government to their advantage, crony capitalism, I'm an unfettered critic. But in defense of capitalism, I am a consistent, unapologetic advocate. Milton Friedman once wrote that if you want to create a shortage of tomatoes, just pass a law that retailers can't sell tomatoes for more than 2 cents. Instantly, you'll have a tomato shortage. I might also add that that's true of prescription drugs. Virtually every shortage of drugs that we've seen in the last few years involves price controls that drive out production of the drug. One reason the United States leads in pharmaceutical innovation is because while the U.S. adhered to a more market-based pricing and rewarded innovators, Europe adopted stringent price controls in the 1980s and 90s. It's not surprising that we lead the world in innovation and Europe does not. But unfortunately, this committee and this hearing is not here to celebrate American success. Instead, the majority drags us to conduct a show trial to harangue companies challenging the Inflation Reduction Act's price controls in court. They've simply brought forward people who question their partisan legislation. 10 years ago, the 5-year survival rate for patients diagnosed with advanced lung cancer was 5%. Terrible. Since Merck introduced the cancer drug Keytruda in 2014, the survival rate has grown nearly fourfold, 5% to 20%. We should be celebrating that instead of castigating people and telling them how to run their business and why are you buying your stock back? I have a friend with a genetic predisposition to cancer. He's alive today because of Keytruda. We should be celebrating that. Johnson & Johnson's Remicade was the first monoclonal antibody approved for treating chronic conditions like Crohn's disease and rheumatoid arthritis. Since its approval, Remicade has revolutionized treatments for inflammatory disease, made remission a reality for patients with debilitating conditions, and paved the way for development of other autoimmune treatments. When I began in medicine, virtually all patients with rheumatoid arthritis you could see from a distance had crippling, disfiguring arthritis in their hands. Now today it's rarely seen because of the advances of American companies under an American system that allowed profit to occur. In 1987, Merck pledged to donate the entire stock of its drug ivermectin to those suffering from river blindness. Nearly 37 years later, ivermectin donation program treats 300 million people annually with over 11 billion treatments shipped to endemic countries. This is charity, my friends, from capitalism. You don't get this under socialism because there is no profit under socialism. They have no money to give. They make extraordinary profits. Do they keep some of it for their investors? Yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. But they also have some left over for charity, and you don't get that under socialism. Because of Merck's donations, 7 countries eradicated the transmission of the #1 cause of blindness in the world. Pharmaceutical innovation has improved cancer rates, cured hepatitis C, doubled the lifespan of patients living with cystic fibrosis. It goes on and on. We've tried price controls in general here. We did it in the 1970s under a Republican president, under Nixon. It was a disaster, and it led to lines at the gas pump. It was an ultimate disaster. A study at the University of Chicago found that 254 fewer drug approvals over the course of 18 years would happen under price controls. Under communism, they knew this. Socialism, communism, under the economic system of socialism. From price controls, it became a running joke. In Poland, during the Soviet era, there was a story of the guy went to the store. He was looking for eggs, and he asked the clerk, "Is this the store with no eggs?" And they said, "No, this is the store with no toilet paper. The store with no eggs is across the street." That's the story of socialism. That's the story of price controls. Scarcity and empty shelves are the inevitable result of price controls. Those who understand and appreciate capitalism do not need a show trial to dupe them into forgetting that price controls have never worked and never will. Let's get back to profitability. I don't think you guys did a very good job on answering this. Did you add into your estimate of whether it's profitable in Canada, whether or not it costs you $2.6 billion on average to develop it? You're talking about manufacturing costs. You're talking about how much it costs to make Keytruda and how much you sell it for to say you have a profit in Canada. Do you think it would still be a profit, Mr. Davis, if you added in all the R&D, the $2.6 billion to get it through this system, the apparatus of your company, and you divided all of that out for profitability? Would it still be profitable in most of these other countries?
I have not done that analysis, but I would say that the profitability would be marginal at best.
Do you think you'd have as much R&D if the whole world were Canada? Do you think you'd be developing dozens of new drugs every year if the whole world were Canada?
No, I do not.
So this is what we're arguing against. You know, sure, you can make it for pennies now, but it didn't start that way. And then people are like, oh my, it costs so much in the beginning. That's capitalism. That's the way it works in capitalism. Joseph Schumpeter talked about this, and he said, this is an old anecdote, but he said, the miracle of capitalism is not that queens have silk stockings, but that factory girls ultimately do. But in the beginning, only the queen has silk stockings. Rich people get stuff in the beginning. Rich people drive the innovation. The first calculators that came out, $300 for adding, subtracting, and dividing machine. Now they're like pennies or free. But you have to allow the price to be higher in the beginning, and the market brings it down as you have more widespread market. That's capitalism. We don't know what the correct price is. There is no moral price. There is no moral amount of profit. There is no business of any of y'all telling them how much stock to buy back. Their job is to make a profit. It's actually against the law for them not to maximize their profit. For you to sit in judgment of how much profit they should make and how they should run their companies, you know nothing of running companies. You know, nobody up here, maybe some, but almost nobody up here has run big companies, billion-dollar companies. And you presume somehow to say you're going to tell these people how to run their company. List price versus net price. List price means absolutely nothing. I charged $1,800 for cataract surgery. The government paid me $600. 2/3 of it, nobody stole that. It disappeared because it never existed. So if I billed $1 million in charges, I really was only billing $300,000 because that's what I was getting paid. But because of the confusing nature of the system, the list price is much different than the net. But to quote list price and then compare it to net price in other countries is completely and profoundly unfair. The list price means absolutely nothing. All of these fallacies need to be addressed before we begin haranguing American CEOs. Thank you.
Thank you for your questioning, Senator.